Hello staff, this screencast is set up to help you get your 2016-2017 growth plan created. From this initial screen here, it's going to look a lot like the screencast for your self-evaluation. Just a reminder, you need to do your self-evaluation before you do the growth plan. But just like the self-evaluation, the growth plan is done within Pivot. So access Pivot, get to your login screen, and get yourself logged in. Once again, your login for Pivot is going to be exactly the same as your login for your laptop. It is not going to be your Google login or your Gmail login. Once in Pivot, again, you're going to go to your Evaluations tab, and this time you're going to click on Growth Plan. Once again, as an administrator, some of my screens are going to look different than yours. If I remember correctly, most of what you see up here, in fact maybe all of what you see up here, doesn't appear on your screen. And you also probably don't have a button that says Create Growth Plan. You should, though, have a button that says Set My Growth Plan, and to get things started, that's what you're going to want to click. If you remember this process from last year, there are more things that you can do within the growth plan than I really want to utilize at this point in time. So in some spots, we just kind of have to put some generic text. To get things started, though, put a growth plan name. It can be as simple as 2016-2017 growth plan. If you want to title it something fancier, that's fine. What I found last year is it really doesn't matter what you title your growth plan. It's going to have to be something that's easy for you to find within Pivot, but then again, you're probably only going to have one growth plan in there. On my end, things get organized pretty well by teacher name and by school year, so your growth plan name really doesn't matter a whole lot. 2016-2017 growth plan would be certainly fine. Should have your name appear next to teacher. School year should default to 2016-2017. If not, make sure you change it so that it does. Growth plan general comments. Again, I don't need a lot of information here, but I have found that something has to be typed in here so that you can finalize or submit your growth plan and get my approval eventually. So you can just put simply the word test in here. If you really want to be a minimalist, you can just type a single letter. Something needs to be in this box, though, otherwise you're going to run into problems. You also need a start and end date for this growth plan. Again, we don't really have to be too picky about what the start and end dates are. I learned that from last year's process. What makes some sense to me, have the start date be the date that you create the plan. In this case for me, it's September 10th. And let's have the end date be, and again, this really doesn't matter what you pick, but our last day of school is June 9th. So June 9th seems like a pretty good day to select. Once again, doesn't really matter what you pick for a start and end date, just make sure you have a start and end date. When you get started, you're going to have one area of focus show up and one goal show up. Let's get started by creating our first area of focus. Now, a growth plan ultimately is meant to be personalized. For this year, I am going to require all staff to have P1 be one of their areas of focus. And unlike last year, our area of focus can change during the year. We could change the area of focus after as little as one observation if that's what we want. But for now, let's have P1 be one of our areas of focus. Fortunately, everything is defaulted to P1 except for the fact that we need to select the 5D Plus Instructional Growth and Teacher Evaluation Version 3 plan. If we don't do this crucial step right here, then our indicators are not going to be aligned with our self-assessment. So making sure you have version 3 selected here, you should still have purpose be showing up right here, and you should still have P1, learning targets connected to standards, show up. In comments, each area of focus needs some comment from you. An example of a good comment here might be, I want to be at least proficient in P1 by the end of the year. Obviously, that's very general. If you wanted to do something that was more specific, that would be fine. But the main reason we're using growth plans this year is so that you have some intention, some purpose in what it is that you want to focus on as we get some feedback going back and forth after observations. And also, by setting this growth plan, whenever I'm in Pivot doing an observation for you, it tells me, without me having to ask you or have you remind me, what your growth plan is. So what you put in the comments can be as much or as little as you want. It may be as easy as putting, I want to be at least proficient by the end of the year for whatever it is that we're using. Let's not worry about the goal right now. Let's instead scroll down. And down here you should see add another goal, add another area of focus. I want you to add another area of focus. Because everyone to start the year is going to have a common area of focus of P1. Your second area of focus, is going to be completely up to you. When you add the new area of focus, it's going to again default to our old rubric and to the purpose dimension and to the first indicator. So we have to again go in and change some things. Once again, for your area of focus, select the version 3 rubric. And now you can pick any of the dimensions you want. I'm going to ask, though, that we stay away from the PCC dimension. There's nothing wrong with wanting to improve within that dimension, but what I found last year is there is no feedback I can give you in a teaching observation on PCC. I can give you feedback on the other 5 dimensions, but not PCC. You're free to pick anything that you want. Again, just for illustrative purposes, I'm going to pick something outside of purpose. I'm going to go into assessment for student learning. Now I need to select the indicator that I want. And again, if you have done your self-evaluation, you've rated yourself in each indicator within each dimension. So you should have some ideas by now of where you want to target your improvement. Just as an example, I'm going to click student self-assessment as an area of focus. I again need to put a comment in. If you don't put a comment in this box, once again, you're not going to be able to submit this. What might be easiest for you to do? Copy what you wrote for the comments of your first area of focus. Paste it into the comments for your second area of focus, and just make sure you change the dimension in the indicator. In this case, I'm moving to A1. And it can be that simple. Everyone needs to have at least 2 areas of focus. You can have a third area of focus if you want, but please don't go beyond 3. If you wanted to add 3, add a third one, I should say. Once again, you go down to the bottom of the page and click on Add Another Area of Focus. Once again, I'm not going to do that in this demonstration because 2 would be fine. Another thing to keep in mind as you're selecting your growth targets, or your focus areas, is that you don't necessarily want to pick the area where you think you need the most assistance. You instead should be selecting 2 to 3 areas where you think you are on the verge of moving up a level. Perhaps you're basic right now, but you feel with a little bit of guided practice you could be proficient. Maybe you're proficient right now, but with some practice you think you could get to distinguished. You want to be selecting areas where a little bit of improvement can have the most impact. And that's in contrast to the areas where you think maybe you don't have a whole lot of skill set yet, and therefore you're kind of feeling like maybe it's an area of deficit. An area of deficit is not necessarily what we want to have for our focus area. Now, I do realize that by directing you all to select P1 as your first one, that I am contradicting myself a little bit. But I really think it's important this year that all staff members get to the proficient level in P1 by the end of the year. Some of you may be there now. Some of you may be beyond that now. Those of you that the learning targets come really easily to, I do think we'll change our area of focus at least by mid-year. But I want everyone to start with purpose. So at least for my first observation, we're having some dialogue about where you're at with your learning targets. Again, your second area of focus is completely up to you, with the only direction being that you do not select one from PCC, because I cannot comment on that after a teacher observation, because we don't see evidence of the things in PCC in a lesson. But you can have any other indicator from any other dimension that you choose. I had mentioned this goal. Again, we're not using the growth plans within Pivot as fully as we could be. So I'm not really concerned at all what goes in the goal right now. What you do need to do is make sure every box has some text into it. So once again, for start date, we need to fill in the start date. Easiest thing might just be to select the date that you create the plan. Again, we need an end date. Again, it doesn't matter what the end date is this time, because I want to get things done quickly. I'm just going to select a random date on the calendar. For goal, again, I am not going to be reading what these goals are. We just need to get this filled out so that we can submit it within Pivot. So just just type in something simple. Could be the word test, or as I mentioned above, you can just type in a single letter and you'll be okay. Same thing for the actions. Get some text in the box and we'll be all set. There may come a time where we start to use Pivot a little more richly and we start doing more with the growth plan and more with this goal. But it's not my area of focus, if you will, for the year. With all of this now filled out, which includes the growth plan information, a minimum of 2 areas of focus, one of them being P1, the other being something of your choice, and remembering that a third one could be selected if desired but not required. And again, just with some text and some dates entered into the goal, you should be ready to request approval on this. I'm noticing right now that you might not be able to see. Hopefully now you can see on the screen where it says save and request approval. If you're all done, click save and request approval. You'll be essentially locked out of it at that point, and I will need to go into Pivot and mark that you are approved. As long as you followed the directions, you will of course be approved. But if you get started, but you're not finished, something takes you away from it, you can save and finish later. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So click Save and Finish Later. It's going to take you back to sort of the main screen under Evaluations for you. You may not see everything that shows up on my screen, but you should see your growth plans for the year. You don't want to set a new one. You just want to edit the one you've already started. And again, hopefully you see in doing so, all the work that I did is saved, and I can pick up where I left off. Once again, when you're done, save and request approval. It's going to ask you if you're really sure that's what you want to do. And at that point, you are all done. The growth plan must be set with at least 2 focus areas before I can start your observations. It is my goal to have you all select a focus area, at least one of your choosing, along with P1, which we're all going to start with. If you haven't submitted your growth plan by the time I'm coming around to do your observation, I'm going to set your growth plan for you. That might sound like a good thing. It might sound like Steve's doing some of the work for me, but it's not going to make this process more enriching and more enlightening for you as a teacher. So please have your growth plan set by the deadline. And if it's something that's going to take you a little bit longer to do, just communicate with me and we can work that out. But so we don't hold up the observation schedule, if you don't have your growth plan set by the time I do an observation, I'll be setting a growth plan for you. Again, that is not the ideal situation. Thank you.